The phone on my kitchen counter was already on speaker when my world tilted sideways. I'd been folding laundry socks, specifically, because that's what normal Tuesday afternoons look like when you're a mom of two. The basket sat between me and a pile of mismatched cotton casualties, and I was actually feeling pretty good about life. Lucy and Noah were at the table behind me, sharing the good crayons, working on what Lucy called a family portrait that featured everyone with triangle bodies and circle heads. Then Allison's voice cut through the room like a knife through butter. I know you'll understand. Kat, we're curating a very specific future leader image for Madison's party. Lucy and Noah are sweet, but they don't quite fit the aesthetic we need for these VIP parents. I froze. The sock, one of Noah's tiny Spider-Man ones, dangled from my hand like a surrender flag. Wait. My voice came out strangled. What did you just say? Behind me, Lucy hummed while she colored. Noah made explosion noises as he added what I assumed were dinosaurs to the family scene. They had no idea. No clue that their aunt, my own sister, was currently explaining why they weren't good enough to attend their cousin's birthday party. You're not inviting them? I turned toward the phone, my hands starting to shake. Allison, their family. Oh, Kat. Her tone shifted to that practiced sympathy she'd perfected over the years, the one that made you feel like you were the unreasonable one. This is exactly why I wanted to talk to you privately. It's better for them not to be there. They'd feel so out of place among these high-caliber kids. Madison's guest list is very strategic this year. We're talking children of venture capitalists, tech executives, the mayor's daughter. It's about networking. Madison's future depends on these connections. High-caliber kids. The words settled in my chest like stones. They're 7 and 5, I said slowly. It's a birthday party, not a shareholder meeting. Don't be naive. Allison's voice took on an edge. These relationships matter. Brian and I have worked incredibly hard to get Madison into Rosewood Academy. Do you know what the competition is like? We can't afford to have her associated with... She caught herself, but not quickly enough. Associated with what? My voice was barely a whisper. Finish that sentence, Allison. I just mean, your kids are wonderful in their own way, but they're not quite at the same developmental level. Madison's friends are all reading at 8th grade levels. They're taking Mandarin and competitive chess. I don't want Lucy and Noah to feel bad about themselves. The Spider-Man sock fell from my hand. I'd spent 34 years as the peacekeeper. The younger sister, who smoothed things over, who bent and flexed and accommodated, who took the smaller bedroom, the later graduation party time slot, the understanding nod when mom and dad couldn't make it to my events because Allison needed them more. My eyes drifted to the table. Lucy had added hearts around the stick figures. At the top, in her careful 7-year-old handwriting, she'd written family in letters that climbed and dipped like a heartbeat monitor. Something inside me cracked, not broke cracked, like ice on a frozen lake, that moment before everything shifts. No, I said. What? No, we're not coming, Allison. If my children aren't good enough for your party, neither am I. The silence on the other end stretched for 3 full seconds. Then, are you serious right now? Don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being clear. My voice was steady now, stronger than I'd heard it in years. You just told me my kids don't fit your aesthetic, that they're not high caliber enough. So, we're out, all of us. Kat, you're completely overreacting. This is why I tried to handle this delicately. I ended the call. My hand was shaking as I set the phone face down on the counter. The kitchen suddenly felt too quiet, except for the gentle scratch of crayons on paper. Mommy? Lucy's voice was small. Was that Aunt Allison? I turned around, wiping my eyes quickly. Yes, baby. Is she mad? No, sweetheart, everything's fine. But it wasn't fine. Nothing about this was fine. The front door opened, and Thomas's footsteps echoed down the hall. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in his suit from work, his tie loosened. One look at my face, and he was moving toward me. What happened? I opened my mouth, closed it, tried again. Allison called. He waited, his dark eyes searching mine. She uninvited the kids to Madison's party, said they don't fit the aesthetic she needs. Wrong caliber. The words tasted bitter. She wanted me to understand that it's better for them that they'd feel out of place with the quality children she's inviting. Thomas's jaw tightened, that muscle near his temple jumping the way it did when he was furious but contained. What did you say? I told her we're not going. None of us. He studied me for a long moment, and I braced myself for him to suggest we smooth it over. That family was important. That maybe Allison had a point about the networking thing, that we should be the bigger people. Instead, he asked, "What do you want to do?" The question caught me off guard. Not what should we do, not what makes sense, what do I want? I looked at Lucy and Noah, still absorbed in their drawing, still safe in their bubble of crayons and imagination. "I want to protect them," I whispered. "I want to draw a line, and never let anyone make them feel less than enough. Not even family. Especially not family." Thomas pulled me into his chest, his hand steady on my back. "Then that's what we'll do." Over his shoulder, I could see Lucy adding more hearts to her picture. She'd drawn a sun in the corner, and was carefully coloring it yellow. "We're not going," I said again, this time to myself. Thomas nodded against my hair. "We're not going." Behind us, Noah announced that he'd finished his dinosaur family, and could he please have a snack? Life moved forward. The laundry still needed folding, dinner still needed making, but something fundamental had shifted. I'd said no to my sister for the first time in my life, and I had no idea that it was only the beginning. Special Adventure Day, I announced to the kids after school, forcing brightness into my voice. "This Saturday, we're going to do something amazing instead of going to Madison's party." Lucy's face fell. "We're not going?" My heart cracked. "We're going to have so much more fun, I promise. Just the four of us." "Did we do something wrong?" Her voice was so small. I knelt down, pulling both kids close. "No, baby, never. You are perfect. Both of you are perfect." Noah's lip trembled. "Doesn't Maddie want us there?" "Sometimes grown-ups make choices that don't make sense," I said carefully, blinking back tears. "But it has nothing to do with you. You didn't do anything wrong." Lucy nodded, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. The hurt. I was going to make this right, somehow. The resolve settled in my bones, carrying me through the rest of the evening routine. That night, after the kids were in bed, I found Thomas in his study. His laptop was open, his expression focused. "What are you doing?" I asked from the doorway. He looked up, and there was something dangerous in his eyes, something calculating. "Brian called me today like nothing happened. Like his wife didn't just publicly humiliate you and the kids. He wants me to fast-track his contract so he can announce it at the party." Thomas leaned back in his chair. "That kind of arrogance makes me suspicious." "Suspicious how?" "No one is that confident unless they think the deal is already done, unless they think they have leverage." He turned back to his screen. "I'm having my VP of Operations pull the full file on Monroe Construction. Every document, every project, every subcontractor. Is that normal?" "Due diligence?" "Always." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Brian's forgotten something important. I didn't build Northbridge Holdings by being careless. And I certainly don't let family dynamics cloud my business judgment." I moved closer, reading the email he was composing to his executive team. Subject: Monroe Construction, Comprehensive Review. Priority: High. Pull all documentation. I want a complete audit before we proceed. What are you looking for?" I asked. Thomas's fingers paused over the keyboard. "I don't know yet. But Brian's behavior today, the entitlement, the assumption it doesn't sit right. Someone that's sure of himself either has something concrete, or he's been operating on borrowed confidence." He hit send. "What if you don't find anything?" "Then I politely decline the contract on business grounds, and we move on with our lives." He stood, closing his laptop. "But if I do find something?" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I'd been with Thomas long enough to recognize that look. Cold, focused, relentless. It was the same expression he wore when a competitor tried to undercut him, or a partner tried to manipulate terms. Brian had made a mistake. He'd assumed that family meant Thomas would be soft, that personal relationships would make him careless. He'd forgotten that Thomas Baker didn't become a CEO at 36 by being anyone's pushover. "The party is Saturday," I said quietly. "I know." Thomas pulled me close, his hand warm against my back. "Let them have their party. Let Brian think he's won. We'll see what the audit turns up." In the darkness of his study, with my sister's words still echoing in my head, "They don't fit the aesthetic," I felt something shift inside me. I'd drawn a line by refusing to go. Thomas was preparing to defend it. And somehow, I knew this was only the beginning. Friday morning, I was making coffee when my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. Allison had posted. I shouldn't have looked. I knew better. But my thumb moved before my brain could stop it. And there it was, a perfectly staged photo of gold-embossed invitations fanned across her marble countertop. Madison's name in raised lettering, some French script I couldn't quite read. The caption made my stomach turn. Sneak peek at tomorrow's celebration, exclusively for the elite. Quality over quantity, always. These future leaders deserve nothing but the best. Madison turns 10. Future leaders. No riffraff. Rosewood Academy. Networking done right. No riffraff. She'd actually typed those words. Hashtagged them. The comments were already rolling in. Mom had posted 3 heart emojis. Dad wrote, "So proud of you both." Brian's business partner commented, "Save me a scotch." No one mentioned Lucy and Noah. No one asked why we weren't on the guest list. It was like we'd been erased. I set my phone down carefully, afraid I might throw it across the room. Thomas walked in, took one look at my face, and picked up my phone. He read the post in silence, his jaw tightening with every word. "Saturday," he said quietly, setting the phone down. "The zoo. We'll take the kids to the Denver Zoo. Make it special." "The zoo," I repeated numbly. "Lucy loves the penguins. Noah wants to see the elephants." His hand found mine. "Let Allison have her perfect party. We'll have something better. Something real." We held on to that promise as the week bled into the weekend, and soon enough, the waiting was over. Saturday morning arrived bright and cloudless, the kind of perfect Colorado day that belonged in a postcard. We loaded the kids into the car with sunscreen and snacks, and I tried not to think about gold invitations and future leaders and Madison's party happening across town. Lucy was quiet in the back seat, staring out the window. "You okay, baby?" I asked. "Is Madison's party right now?" My chest tightened. "Probably soon, yeah." "Do you think she's having fun?" Thomas caught my eye in the rearview mirror, his expression gentle but firm. "Let it go. Focus on us." I think," I said carefully, "that we're going to have the best day ever at the zoo. Just us." Noah perked up. "Can we see the lions?" "We can see everything," Thomas promised. True to his word, 30 minutes later we were pulling into the parking lot amidst a sea of excited families. The Denver Zoo was packed, families everywhere, kids screaming with joy, balloons bobbing in the breeze. It was chaotic and loud, and completely imperfect. It was wonderful. We started at the penguin exhibit because Lucy wouldn't stop talking about it. She pressed her face against the glass, watching them waddle and dive, her earlier sadness temporarily forgotten. "Look, Mommy! That one's doing a flip!" Noah tugged on Thomas's hand. "Daddy, can penguins fly?" "Not in the air, buddy. But they fly through the water." We moved through the exhibits, the giraffes, the elephants, the absolutely massive grizzly bears, that made Noah gasp and hide behind Thomas's legs. We bought overpriced ice cream that melted too fast. We took terrible family selfies where someone was always blinking. It was messy and sticky and real. And then we got to the flamingos. Lucy had been holding my hand, chattering about how the birds were pink because of what they ate, something she'd learned from a nature show, when she suddenly stopped mid-sentence. There was a family near the fence. A little girl, maybe 8, wearing a birthday crown. Silver balloons tied to her wrist, spelled out, "Birthday, girl." Lucy's whole body went rigid. "Mommy," she whispered, "is it Maddie's birthday today?" "Oh no." "Yes, sweetie, but Grandma said we weren't shiny enough." Her voice cracked. "What does shiny mean? Does it mean we're dirty? I take baths every night." "Lucy, no." "Does Maddie hate us?" Tears started streaming down her face. "Did we do something bad? Is that why we couldn't come?" I dropped to my knees right there on the concrete path, families flowing around us like water around a stone. Noah was crying now too, his little face crumpling. I don't want to be not shiny. And something inside me just shattered. All the peacekeeping, all the accommodation, all the years of being the understanding younger sister who didn't make waves, it combusted in my chest like paper catching fire. I pulled both kids close, my hands shaking with rage and grief and fierce, burning love. "Listen to me," I said, my voice low and intense. "Both of you. You are perfect. You are kind and funny and smart and creative. You are the best parts of every single day. Anyone who can't see that anyone who would make you feel like you're not enough doesn't deserve you." Lucy sobbed against my shoulder. But Aunt Allison said, "Aunt Allison is wrong." The words came out harder than I intended, but I meant every syllable. "She is wrong, and what she did was cruel, and it has nothing to do with who you are." I felt Thomas's hand on my shoulder, steady and warm. Noah was wiping Lucy's tears with the Zoom app, leaving smudges of ink on her cheeks. The simple gesture, Big Brother taking care of his sister, made my heart crack and reform into something stronger. "We love you," Thomas said, kneeling down beside me. "More than anything in this world, and we will never ever let anyone make you feel small. That's a promise." Lucy hiccuped, her arms tight around my neck. "Even family?" "Especially family," I whispered. We stayed there for a long time, the four of us nodded together on the path while the world moved around us. When we finally stood up, something fundamental had shifted. I wasn't going to be the peacekeeper anymore. I was going to be the protector. The clarity of that moment stayed with me as we drove home, washed off the day's grime, and finally settled the house for the night. That night, after the kids were finally asleep, exhausted from the zoo and the emotional weight of the day, I found Thomas at his laptop again. The blue light illuminated his face, casting shadows that made him look dangerous. "What are you doing?" I asked, though I already knew. "Reading." He didn't look up from the screen. "Find anything?" His finger paused over the trackpad. "Smoke. Not fire yet, but definitely smoke." He turned the laptop toward me. The screen showed a dense audit report, full of financial jargon and highlighted sections. Brian's insurance certificates are outdated on 2 projects. His subcontractor payment schedules are irregular, and there are some vendor complaints about intimidation tactics. Thomas's voice was clinical, detached. "Nothing definitively illegal yet, but enough that I'm not comfortable proceeding without deeper investigation. What happens now?" "Now I ask for more documentation, safety records, liability coverage updates, subcontractor verification." He closed the laptop. "Standard compliance check before a contract this size. Brian will think it's just bureaucratic process. But it's not." "No." His smile was cold. "It's not." He opened his email and began typing. "To Brian Monroe, subject Monroe Construction, pre-contract documentation. Brian. Per standard protocol for contracts exceeding $15 million, Northbridge Holdings requires updated compliance documentation before final review. Please submit the following by end of business Monday. 1. Updated liability insurance certificates. 2. Subcontractor payment verification for all active projects. 3. Safety incident reports past 24 months. This is standard procedure. Looking forward to reviewing and moving forward. Best, Thomas." "You're giving him the weekend," I said. "I'm giving him hope." Thomas hit send. "Let him enjoy Madison's party. Let him brag to his country club friends about the big Northbridge deal. Let him think he's won." "And then?" Thomas stood, closing his laptop with a soft click. "And then we see how he handles actual scrutiny." In the darkness of his study, I saw my husband clearly, not just the CEO, not just the careful businessman, but the man who'd knelt beside me on a zoo path and promised our children he'd never let anyone make them feel small. "They hurt our kids," I said quietly. "I know. This isn't just about business anymore, is it?" Thomas's hand found mine in the dark. "It was always about family, Catherine. Brian just forgot which family actually matters." Upstairs, I could hear Noah's sound machine humming through the monitor. Lucy had probably kicked off her covers again, the way she always did. Tomorrow was Sunday. Allison would probably post party photos Madison with her elite friends, the perfect aesthetic, quality over quantity. But Monday was coming, and with it, consequences. Sunday passed in a blur of quiet tension, a holding pattern before the storm. Monday morning arrived with deceptive calm. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the curtains and Thomas already dressed for work, his tie perfectly knotted, his expression unreadable. "Big day?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Just another Monday." He kissed my forehead. I sent the documentation request to Brian Saturday night. Let's see how quickly he responds. After he left, I made breakfast and got the kids ready for school. Lucy was still quiet, more subdued than usual, and it made my chest ache. Noah asked twice if we could go back to the zoo, and I promised we would soon. I didn't check my phone, didn't look at the family group chat, didn't scroll Instagram to see the inevitable flood of party photos. I'd gone silent, and the silence felt like power. It was a quiet strength that carried me through the weekend and into the start of the week, shielding me from the noise outside. By afternoon, my mother had apparently noticed. My phone rang her name on the screen and I let it go to voicemail. She called again. I declined. A text appeared. "Catherine, this silent treatment is childish. Your sister's feelings are hurt." I stared at the message for a long moment, then set my phone face down on the counter. Allison's feelings were hurt. Not my children's. Not Lucy's, who'd cried at the zoo. Not Noah's, who'd asked if he was dirty. Allison's. I didn't respond. I let the screen go dark, maintaining my silence until the evening brought news. That evening, Thomas came home with his tablet, his expression thoughtful. "Brian sent the documentation," he said, showing me the email. "Tom, here's everything you requested. Standard stuff, all in order. Let's get this signed. Need to announce by next week? Investors are getting antsy. Also, can we have lunch on Friday? Got some great momentum going." "He thinks the deal is moving forward," I said. "He's certain of it." Thomas scrolled through the attached files. "Look at the tone. Casual, confident. He's already talking about next steps." "Is everything in order?" Thomas's smile was razor sharp. "That's what my legal team is determining right now. But there's something else." He opened another document. "Brian's been telling people the deal is done. My assistant heard it from 3 different sources today. He's been at the country club, telling investors that Northbridge Holdings is fully committed to funding his expansion." "But you haven't signed anything." "Exactly." Thomas set down the tablet. "So either Brian is prematurely celebrating, or he's been operating under the assumption that family loyalty would guarantee the contract. Either way, it's poor business practice. And if the documentation doesn't check out, then we have a bigger problem." The threat of that problem lingered in the back of our minds for the following days, a storm gathering on the horizon. Thursday evening, while I was helping Lucy with her homework, Thomas's tablet pinged. He picked it up, read the screen, and went very still. "Catherine." Something in his voice made me look up. "What is it?" He didn't answer immediately, just kept reading, his finger scrolling slowly down the screen. His jaw was tight, that muscle near his temple jumping. "Thomas?" "Brian's been using my name." His voice was flat, controlled. "For 18 months, he's been telling suppliers and subcontractors that the Northbridge deal was finalized. That I'd personally guaranteed his expansion funding." My stomach dropped. "What?" He turned the tablet toward me. It was an audit report, 47 pages of dense text and highlighted sections. The header read, "Monroe Construction, Comprehensive Review, Confidential." "Page 12, Thomas said quietly. "Safety violations. Minor but consistent. Corners being cut." He scrolled. "Page 23. Irregular subcontractor payments. Not illegal but ethically questionable." Scrolled again. "Page 47. His finger tapped the screen. "This is where it gets interesting." I leaned closer, reading the highlighted section. Subject: Brian Monroe. Findings indicate the subject has repeatedly invoked Northbridge Holdings and CEO Thomas Baker by name when negotiating with suppliers, stating that "the deal is done, and my brother-in-law is backing me fully." Multiple vendors report feeling coerced into accepting lower bids based on these assurances. Cross-reference check confirms no such agreement was finalized during this period. The words blurred in front of my eyes. "He's been bullying people," I whispered. "Using your name to intimidate them. For a year and a half." Thomas's voice was ice. "Before we ever discussed the contract formally. Before any due diligence. He's been operating as if the money was already his. That's fraud. It's at minimum misrepresentation. At worst." Thomas closed the tablet. "At worst, it's criminal fraud." We sat in silence, the weight of the discovery settling over us. In the other room, Lucy was singing to herself some song from school about autumn leaves. Noah was building a tower with blocks, the soft clatter of wood on wood punctuating the quiet. They had no idea that their uncle was a liar, that their aunt had called them low caliber. that their grandparents had sided with cruelty. "What are you going to do?" I asked. Thomas picked up his tablet again, opening his email. To Jennifer Chen, Chief Legal Officer, CC, David Rodriguez, VP Operations, Subject, Monroe Construction, Contract Termination. Jennifer, please prepare formal termination documentation for the Monroe Construction proposal. Grounds: material misrepresentation, unauthorized use of company name, and due diligence failures. Full audit report attached. I want a complete legal review by end of business Friday. Do not contact Brian Monroe until I give explicit authorization. SETAR. He hit send. "You're ending it," I said. "I'm protecting my company." Thomas set down the tablet and looked at me. "And I'm making sure Brian understands something important. Family doesn't mean I'm careless. It especially doesn't mean I tolerate fraud. When will you tell him?" "Monday." His smile was cold, calculated. Let him have his weekend. Let him make his plans, tell his investors, celebrate his inevitable success. Thomas stood, straightening his tie. He's going to need the good memories. I watched my husband, this man who'd knelt beside me at the zoo, who'd promised our children he'd never let anyone hurt them, and saw something fierce and protective burning in his eyes. "This is going to destroy his business," I said quietly. "He destroyed it himself." Thomas's voice was matter of fact. "I'm just declining to save him from his own decisions." Through the doorway, I could see Lucy and Noah's family portraits still hanging on the refrigerator. Stick figures with circle heads and triangle bodies, surrounded by hearts. "Family," written in crooked letters across the top. "Monday," I repeated. Thomas nodded. "Monday." And somewhere across town, Brian Monroe was probably celebrating, making calls, confirming investors, planning his big announcement. He had no idea the ground was already crumbling beneath his feet. The trap had been set. Now we just had to wait for it to spring. Monday morning arrived with surgical precision. I sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee that went cold while I stared at the clock. 10 a.m. That's when Brian's meeting was scheduled. Thomas had left the house at 7:30, his expression unreadable behind his sunglasses. He'd kissed me goodbye, squeezed my hand once, and said nothing about what was coming. He didn't need to. I knew. I didn't have to witness it to know it was happening, though the details would come soon enough. Later, Thomas would tell me everything. How Brian arrived at Northbridge Holdings 15 minutes early, carrying a bottle of champagne in a gift bag. How he'd joked with the receptionist about celebrating. How he'd actually practiced his investor pitch in the elevator, muttering numbers under his breath. Brian thought he was walking into a coronation. He walked into an execution. Conference Room C was on the 14th floor, all glass walls and polished mahogany. The kind of room where million-dollar decisions happened over coffee and handshakes. Brian strutted in at exactly 10 a.m., his smile wide and confident. Then he saw the welcoming committee. Thomas sat at the head of the table, perfectly still. To his right, Jennifer Chen, Chief Legal Officer, her expression professionally neutral. To his left, Marcus Webb, Head of Risk Management, holding a tablet and wearing the kind of face that delivered bad news for a living. Brian's smile flickered. "What's with the welcoming committee? I thought this was just us, Tom." "Have a seat, Brian." Thomas's voice was Arctic calm. Brian sat, but his hands were already fidgeting with his tie. "Is something wrong? Did legal find an issue with the paperwork? I can get revised documents by..." Thomas slid a manila folder across the table. The sound of paper on wood was deafening in the silent room. "Monroe Construction, audit findings," Thomas said. 47 pages. I recommend starting on page 12. Brian's laugh came out nervous, strangled. "What is this? Tom, we don't need a formal audit like this. We're family, not a publicly traded conglomerate. I sent you everything." "Due diligence," Thomas interrupted. "Something you should have considered before you started using my name without authorization." The color drained from Brian's face. "What are you talking about?" Jennifer opened her own folder, her voice crisp and professional. "For the past 18 months, you've been telling suppliers, subcontractors, and investors that Northbridge Holdings had already committed to funding your expansion. You invoked Thomas Baker's name specifically, stating the deal was finalized and guaranteed. That's just networking, building relationships. Everyone does that." "Everyone doesn't commit fraud." Marcus tapped his tablet, turning it toward Brian. We have documented testimony from 7 different vendors. You threatened them with loss of future contracts if they didn't accept your price demands. You told them that Northbridge was backing you, that Thomas had personally approved the partnership, and that anyone who didn't cooperate would be blacklisted. Brian's hands were shaking now. Those are misunderstandings. Business communication. You're taking casual conversations and twisting. Page 23, Thomas said quietly. You failed to pay subcontractors on the Riverside project for 43 days. When they complained, you told them the money was coming from Northbridge and they needed to be patient, but we had no agreement, no contract, no commitment. I was anticipating the deal. I needed to keep projects moving. You lied. Thomas's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. You misrepresented your financial position, manipulated vendors using my company's reputation, and built your expansion plans on a foundation of fraud. Brian stood abruptly, his chair scraping back. You can't kill a deal over paperwork. We're family. This is ridiculous. Catherine is just being dramatic about the party, and now you're punishing me for... Sit down. The command was soft, but Brian sat. Thomas leaned forward, his hands folded on the table. This has nothing to do with the party. Though your character there was certainly revealing. You and your wife ranked children by social value. You excluded my son and daughter because they didn't fit your aesthetic. That showed me exactly who you are. Tom, come on. But this? Thomas tapped the folder. This is about business. You manipulated relationships for personal gain. You lied to vendors, threatened suppliers, and used my name, my company's reputation to bully people into accepting your terms. For 18 months, you operated as if my money was already yours. Brian's face was red now, sweat beading on his forehead. I can fix this. I can apologize to the vendors. I can... Page 47. Thomas's voice was ice. You told the Highlands Project investors that I was your brother-in-law, and that family loyalty guaranteed the Northbridge partnership. You sold them shares in your expansion based on money you didn't have. That's investment fraud, Brian. The room went silent. Jennifer slid a document across the table. Official letterhead, dense legal text. Northbridge Holdings is formally declining the Monroe construction proposal, she said. Effective immediately. Furthermore, we are legally obligated to report these findings to the state licensing board. They'll conduct their own investigation. Brian stared at the letter like it was written in a foreign language. You can't. The licensing board? That could shut me down. I have projects in progress. I have employees. You have consequences. Thomas stood, buttoning his suit jacket. Which you earned. I built Northbridge on integrity, Brian. I don't cut corners. I don't manipulate people. And I sure as hell don't use my family connections to bully vendors. Please. Brian's voice cracked. Tom, please. The $18 million, it's my lifeline. Without it, I lose everything. The expansion, the investors, the lifestyle you couldn't actually afford. Thomas opened the folder again. You taught my children something valuable this week, Brian. You taught them that some people aren't worth having in your life, even if they're related. Especially if they're related. This is about the party. Brian's voice turned desperate, angry. You're destroying my business because of a stupid birthday party. No. Thomas's voice was final. You destroyed your business the moment you decided integrity was optional. I'm just declining to save you from your own decisions. He walked to the door, paused, looked back. The champagne was a nice touch, though. Very presumptuous. Thomas left. Jennifer and Marcus followed, taking their folders and tablets and the smoking ruins of Brian's future with them. Brian sat alone in conference room C, staring at the termination letter, the bottle of champagne sweating condensation onto the mahogany table. While he sat in the wreckage of his arrogance, my day continued with the rhythmic normalcy of household chores. My phone rang at 2:30 that afternoon. I was folding laundry, the same basket of mismatched socks that had been there when Allison first called. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. Allison's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Catherine. Her voice was shaking with rage. What did you do? I'm doing laundry, I said calmly. What's up? Don't play innocent. Brian just got home. Her voice broke. You ruined us. Thomas destroyed his business. Over what? Over a birthday party? I didn't ruin anything, Allison. I stayed home and had pizza with my kids. You turned your husband against us. Brian is losing everything, the expansion, the investors, the licensing board is investigating him. Do you understand what you've done? I sat down slowly, the sock in my hand forgotten. What I've done? My voice was steady, calmer than I'd ever heard it. I drew a boundary. I said my children weren't going to be treated like they were worthless. That's all I did. This is insane! You're destroying our family over hurt feelings. No, the word came out sharp. You destroyed it when you called my kids low caliber, when you told me they didn't fit your aesthetic, when you publicly hashtagged no riffraff, like they were trash you were keeping out of your perfect party. It was just a party. And this is just business. I stood, walking to the window. Brian lied to vendors. He used Thomas's name to bully people. He committed fraud, Allison, for 18 months. Thomas didn't ruin him. Brian ruined himself. He was trying to build something. He was trying to give Madison opportunities. By cutting corners? By lying? By manipulating people? My voice rose despite myself. You both played games with people's dignity. Turns out Thomas doesn't play games. Catherine, please. Her voice shifted to pleading. Talk to Thomas. Make him stop the licensing board investigation. We can fix this. Brian can apologize. No. The word hung in the air. What? No, I repeated. I'm not fixing this. I'm not smoothing it over. I'm not being the peacekeeper who bends and accommodates and pretends everything is fine when it's not. You made your choices. Brian made his. Now you get to live with them. You're really going to let your sister lose everything? You were really going to let my children think they weren't good enough? I countered. That they were too low class for your aesthetic? That they were riffraff? Silence. That's what I thought, I said quietly. Goodbye, Allison. Catherine, wait. I ended the call. And then, for the first time in my life, I blocked my sister's number. The action felt monumental, like closing a door that had been swinging open in the wind for 34 years, letting in cold air and criticism, and the constant demand that I be smaller, quieter, more accommodating. I blocked my mother's number next, then my father's. The silence that followed was deafening, and absolutely, perfectly freeing. I sat in that freedom as the afternoon wore on, watching the light change until the sound of a car in the driveway signaled the end of the workday. That evening, Thomas came home to find me in the backyard with the kids. Lucy was on the swing set, Noah was digging in the sandbox, and I was sitting on the porch steps with a glass of wine, watching the sunset paint the sky pink and gold. He sat down beside me, loosening his tie. How'd it go? I asked, though I'd already heard from Allison's call. Exactly as planned. He took my wine glass, sipped, handed it back. Brian thought he was getting champagne and congratulations. He got a termination letter and a referral to the state licensing board. Allison called me, screaming. I'm sure she did. I blocked her number. And my parents. Thomas turned to look at me, his expression unreadable. How do you feel? I watched Lucy pump her legs, going higher and higher, her hair streaming behind her like a flag. Noah was building a sandcastle, humming to himself. Free, I said honestly. Lighter, like I've been carrying something heavy for so long that I forgot I was carrying it, and now I've finally put it down. Thomas's arm came around my shoulders, warm and solid. They called my babies riffraff, I whispered, and I almost let it go. I almost peace-kept my way through it like I always do. But you didn't. No, I leaned into him. I didn't. I drew a line, and you defended it. Always will, Lucy called out from the swing. Mommy, watch how high I can go. I watched her arc through the air, fearless and laughing, and felt something settle in my chest, something that felt like peace but stronger, like armor made of love. Brian taught them they weren't good enough, I said. Now they'll grow up knowing that anyone who can't see their value doesn't deserve space in their lives. Even family, Thomas agreed, especially family. The sun sank lower, painting everything gold. Noah abandoned his sandcastle to join Lucy on the swings, and their laughter rang out across the yard like bells. Tomorrow, Brian would start dealing with the consequences of 18 months of fraud. Allison would face the social fallout of her crumbling status. My parents would get furious I wasn't answering their calls. But right now, in this moment, we had everything that mattered. Dignity, boundaries, peace, and a family, our real family, that knew what love actually looked like. 3 months later, autumn had turned the Denver trees into flames of red and gold, but an unseasonably warm spell had gifted us a final taste of summer. I stood in my backyard on a Saturday afternoon, watching Lucy and Noah shriek with joy in the inflatable pool we'd dragged back out of the garage. Even though it was technically October, the sun was blazing, and the kids were splashing each other, and the 3 neighborhood kids who joined them. It was chaotic. It was messy. It was absolutely nothing like an exclusive, curated, aesthetically perfect party. It was better. "You're going to have mud track through your house for weeks," Jen said from her lawn chair, sipping lemonade. She was my closest friend from book club, and the only person I'd told the full story to. Worth it. I flipped a burger on the grill, the smoke curling up into the crisp air. Did you see Noah's face when Tommy from next door said he wanted to be on his team? Pure joy. That's what parties should look like. Paper plates were stacked on the picnic table, the cheap kind with cartoon characters on them, red Solo cups, a cooler full of juice boxes and beer. Hot dogs next to gourmet burgers because some of the kids were picky. It was the opposite of gold-embossed invitations and future leaders and networking opportunities. It was real. Jen studied me over her sunglasses. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you feel guilty? About what happened with Brian and Allison?" I considered the question while I turned the burgers. Did I feel guilty? Brian's construction company had downsized significantly. The state licensing board investigation had found enough violations that he'd been fined heavily and put under regulatory supervision. The big expansion he'd planned was dead. He'd had to let go of half his staff. Allison had quietly withdrawn Madison from Rosewood Academy. The tuition was too steep without the investor money they'd been counting on. Madison was at public school now, the same one Lucy and Noah attended. The exclusive social circle Allison had fought so hard to cultivate had evaporated when her financial status changed. Turns out those VIP parents were more interested in networking opportunities than actual friendship. The Instagram posts had stopped. No more hashtags about elite gatherings or future leaders. The last post I'd seen from a mutual acquaintance's story showed Allison at a grocery store in jeans and a ponytail. No designer dress. No perfectly curated aesthetic. Just a tired woman buying milk. "No," I said finally. "I don't feel guilty. Brian committed fraud. Thomas didn't make him do that. And, Allison," I paused, watching Lucy help one of the younger kids climb into the pool. Allison made choices about what kind of person she wanted to be. I just stopped letting those choices affect my children. That's very evolved of you. I laughed. 3 months ago, I would have been drowning in guilt. I would have called my mom crying, apologizing, trying to fix everything. But you know what I realized? What? I don't owe them my peace. I plated the burgers, grabbed the hot dog buns. I have peace right here. Why would I give that up to make people comfortable who were perfectly fine making my kids uncomfortable? Jen raised her lemonade in a toast. To boundaries. To boundaries, I agreed. We clinked our glasses, content in the moment, and the afternoon drifted on until a new sound broke the rhythm. At 3:30, I was refilling the lemonade pitcher when I heard a car pull up in the driveway. I knew that engine sound. Allison's SUV, the same black luxury vehicle she'd always driven, though now it looked like it actually got used instead of just detailed. There was a soccer ball in the back window. A car seat that hadn't been there before, probably Madison's younger brother's. My stomach tightened, but I didn't panic. I didn't rush to clean up or hide the paper plates or apologize for the chaos. I just waited. Allison got out of the driver's seat. She was wearing jeans, actual jeans, not designer ones, and a plain sweater. Her hair was in a simple ponytail. No makeup except maybe some lip gloss. She looked tired, real, human. Madison climbed out of the passenger side, holding a small wrapped present. She looked nervous. I walked around the side of the house to meet them, wiping my hands on my apron, the one that said Grill Master, that Thomas had bought as a joke. "Hi," Allison said. Her voice was quiet. "Hi." We stood there for a long moment, the sound of children's laughter floating over the fence. "I called first," Allison said. "But you blocked my number." "I did." So I took a chance that you might be home on a Saturday afternoon. She glanced at Madison. We brought a present for Noah. His birthday is this week, right? I nodded slowly. Noah turned 6 on Tuesday. Can we? Allison's voice cracked. Can we come in? I should have said no. I should have protected my peace, maintained my boundaries, sent them away to preserve the hard-won serenity I'd built over the past 3 months. But Madison was looking at me with hopeful eyes, and Lucy was shrieking happily in the backyard, and I realized something important. I wasn't the peacekeeper anymore. I didn't need to fix everything or smooth things over or pretend like nothing had happened. But I could decide, on my terms, what forgiveness looked like. Come on, I said, gesturing toward the backyard. Fair warning, it's chaos back there. Allison's smile was small, genuine. I think we can handle chaos. She followed me around the side of the house, clutching the gift like a shield. Madison spotted the pool immediately and froze, clearly uncertain if she was allowed to join. Lucy looked up, saw her cousin, and waved enthusiastically. Maddie, come play. We're having a water war. No hesitation, no grudge, just pure forgiveness. Madison looked at Allison, who nodded. Within minutes, Madison had ditched her shoes and was in the pool fully clothed, laughing as Noah splashed her with water. The kids didn't care about aesthetics or exclusive guest lists, or who fit whose image. They just cared about having fun. Allison stood beside me at the grill, watching. Her hands were shaking. Catherine, she said quietly. I'm sorry. The words hung in the air between us. I didn't respond immediately. I plated a hot dog, added ketchup for one of the kids, handed it over. What exactly are you sorry for? I asked finally. Allison flinched. For what I said about Lucy and Noah, for the party, for... She took a shaky breath. For spending so long trying to impress people who didn't actually care about us that I forgot what actually matters, which is... family. Real family. Not networking contacts or social status. She wiped her eyes. The people at that party? The ones I was so desperate to impress? They dropped us the second Brian's business tanked. Madison's friends from Rosewood stopped returning our calls. Those VIP parents I wanted to network with? They pretended they didn't know me at the grocery store. I handed her a paper plate with a burger. She stared at it. It's not fancy, I said. No gold leaf or truffle oil, just a burger. It's perfect. Allison took the plate, her voice breaking. Catherine, I lost everything trying to look like I had everything. And you actually have everything. Real friends, kids who are happy, a husband who protected you instead of asking you to sacrifice your dignity for business deals. Thomas protected the kids. I corrected. I just stopped letting anyone make them feel small. That's what I should have done. Allison sat down at the picnic table, the paper plate in front of her looking absurd next to her designer purse. I should have been proud of Madison for who she is, not who I wanted her to impress people with, and I should have let her be around her cousins who actually love her, instead of fake friends who only cared about her last name. From the pool, Madison was teaching Noah some kind of complicated splash technique. Lucy was laughing so hard she had hiccups. It's a start, I said carefully. Allison looked up. What? Your apology. It's a start. I sat down across from her. But I'm not who I was 3 months ago, Allison. I'm not the same person. I'm not going to bend and accommodate and pretend like things are fine when they're not. If you're here because you want back into my life, you need to understand something. Okay. My kids come first. Always. If you ever make them feel less than, we're done. Not just blocked, numbers done. Done. I won't sacrifice their well-being for family harmony. Not anymore. Allison nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand, and I promise no more exclusive parties, no more rankings. No more treating any child like they're not good enough. Good. We sat in silence for a moment, watching the kids play. Madison was completely soaked, her hair plastered to her face, laughing harder than I'd seen her laugh in years. She's happier at public school, Allison admitted, more relaxed, less pressure to be perfect all the time. Lucy loves having her in her class. Really? Really. She talks about Maddie every day. Apparently they're partners in science now. Allison's smile was watery but genuine. I missed 3 months of that. 3 months of my daughter being actually happy because I was too proud to admit I was wrong. You're here now. Am I? Allison looked at me uncertainly. Are we okay? I thought about it, really thought about it. Was I ready to let her back in? To risk the peace I'd built? But then I looked at Madison in the pool, and Lucy teaching her the splash game, and Noah offering to share his juice box. The kids had already forgiven her. Maybe I could too. Slowly, carefully. With boundaries firmly in place. It's a start, I said again. But Allison? I'm not the same person I was. I don't keep peace at the expense of my sanity anymore. I don't accommodate cruelty. And I don't apologize for protecting my family. I don't want you to. Allison reached across the table, her hand hovering near mine. I want to learn how to be like you. Strong, clear, unafraid to draw lines. I didn't take her hand, but I didn't pull away either. Eat your burger, I said. It's getting cold. She took a bite, and we fell into a companionable silence that lasted until the shadows stretched long across the grass. Thomas came home at 5 to find a backyard full of soaking wet children, a cooler full of empty juice boxes, and his wife laughing with her sister over paper plates and cheap beer. He raised an eyebrow at me. I shrugged, smiling. He understood. He always did. Later, after everyone had gone home, and the kids were finally in bed exhausted, happy, smelling like chlorine and hot dogs, Thomas found me on the back porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that no Instagram filter could replicate. He put his arm around me, pulling me close. Allison came by, I said. I saw. She apologized. Did you accept? I said it was a start. I leaned into him. I'm not who I was, Thomas. I can't go back to being the person who bent and accommodated and kept peace at any cost. I don't want you to. He kissed the top of my head. I like who you are now. Strong. Clear. Unafraid. I learned from the best. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky fade from orange to purple to deep blue. Brian's business survived, Thomas said eventually. Smaller, supervised, but alive. I know. Allison's working part-time at a bookstore. Madison's thriving at public school. I know that too. Do you regret any of it? I thought about Lucy crying at the zoo, asking if she was shiny enough. I thought about Noah wiping her tears with a zoo map. I thought about 3 months of peace, of boundaries, of learning that family doesn't mean accepting cruelty. No, I said firmly. Not even a little bit. Good. Thomas's arm tightened around me. Because our kids learned something invaluable. They learned that dignity is expensive, but it's worth every penny. They learned that they don't need everyone's approval, just the love of people who see their true value. In the darkness, I could hear Lucy's sound machine humming through the baby monitor. Noah had probably kicked off his covers again. Tomorrow, life would continue. Allison might call she had my new number now, cautiously given, or she might not. Either way, I'd be okay. Because I'd learned something too. I'd learned that peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of boundaries. I'd learned that family doesn't mean tolerating cruelty, it means protecting the people you love from it. And I'd learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is draw a line and refuse to cross it. Thank you, I whispered to Thomas. For what? For seeing our kids' value, for defending them, for showing me that being strong doesn't mean being cruel, it just means being clear. Always, he promised. The stars came out one by one, pinpricks of light in the deepening dark. And in my messy, chaotic, perfectly imperfect backyard, surrounded by the evidence of a day full of real connection and authentic joy, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, complete and total peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because I'd finally learned that I didn't need it to be.